This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Once you change your philosophy, you change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, you change your attitude. Once you change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. And then you go on into some action.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise.
Hello everyone, my name is Zion Carter. I'm the current president of the Black Student Association, and I wanted to welcome you all to the Black History Month kickoff. This year's theme is the Reclamation, Knowledge, Power, and Space. I want to thank you guys all for being here today.
Welcome everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to our annual UCO Black History Month celebration. We are here to celebrate the vital role that African Americans have played in the development and progress of the American history. Before I get started, I would like to extend a special thank you to our President Patty Newhold-Rabbit-Kamara, for reaching out this summer during those difficult and trying days. A special thank you to the hard work and dedication of the Black Student Association, as well as the African American Faculty Staff Association. And last but certainly not least, to Denis Roseburg Alotu. Please join me in thanking these dedicated and hardworking individuals. Black History Month gives us everyone the opportunity to share, celebrate, and understand the impact of our Black heritage and culture. I want to challenge you today to take this Black History Month and reflect on the African American experience today. Which side of history will you stand on? We all know we still have a lot of problems, and many of those problems can be traced to racism. Reading and watching the news only amplifies the disparity between minority groups, specifically African Americans today. In the words of Desmond Tutu, if you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. End quote. Don't be neutral. Make the commitment that you will not look away when the elephant is standing on the tail of the mouse. Make a promise to yourself to speak up when you see injustice. Thank you for coming and visiting with us. As a reminder, please wear a mask and practice social distancing. Enjoy the celebration, challenge yourself, and learn and grow. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gigi Jones, and I serve as Coordinator for Diversity Education at the University of Central Oklahoma's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. James Baldwin once said that American history is longer, larger, more various, more beautiful, and more terrible than anything anyone has ever said about it. It is essential that we continue celebrating and honoring this month as we go through this time of reclamation. Reclaiming knowledge through educating factual history. Reclaiming power by ensuring the continued legacy of those who came before. Reclaiming space by being in spaces just like this. Spaces originally not created for the same individuals who helped build the space. We thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Although we aren't face to face this year, we hope that you take the time to reflect on what reclamation means to you. Now, please help me welcome Joe Tiger, President of the Native American Student Association, as she presents the land acknowledgement.
Hishte Stongo Joe Tiger Chajif Gros, Hi, hello, I am Joe Tiger, and I serve as the president for the Native American Student Association for the 2020-2021 school year. The University of Central Oklahoma respectfully honors Native American knowledges and worldviews based on intimate relations to the natural world. While the state of Oklahoma is currently the homeland of 39 sovereign indigenous nations, the university acknowledges that the territory on which the institution sits on is the territory of the Osage, Caddo, Kiowa, Comanche, and Wichita people. As members of the University of Central Oklahoma, we strive for respectful partnerships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation, as well as honoring this beautiful land together. We pledge to have a meaningful and respectful relationship with the sovereign Indian nations, indigenous communities, and Native American peoples within the institution. Mado, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Please help me welcome Ms. Erica Burkett, our current Miss Black UCO.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Now, this is a story all about how the Office of Diversity and Inclusion gets down. We like to take a minute so that we can share how the ODI creates an inclusive atmosphere. In Edmond, Oklahoma, where the Broncos play, the ODI is where we spend most of our days. Having conversations because diversity is cool while ensuring that our students find their place at our school when a couple of people intent on spreading some good started playing things when no one else could. Our signature events designed to celebrate became the mediums in which the ODI educates.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Fred Hammond. I work in the College of Education and Professional Studies. And I'd like to thank the ODI for inviting me to speak to you a few minutes about reclaiming knowledge. Knowledge, what a powerful word. But what is it actually, what we're talking about when we say knowledge? It's a synonym with wisdom, but it stands powerful all by itself. In fact, if we wanted to use a definition, it would be facts, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education. So because it's experience through or through experience or education, knowledge is one of those things that's learned. It's not given to you. It's a requirement and expected for you to go after. The theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. We all should study to show ourselves worthy. In the great Bible that stands before us, quotes the word knowledge over 100 times in various scriptures. The most valuable thing in the world is knowledge. Everything else in our lives, money, health, love, can all come and go. They can all be taken from us. The one thing that no one can ever take from you once you have acquired it is knowledge. But what is it that we do with that knowledge? There lies the end question. Most folks reserve it for their own personal greed or their own personal need. Most folks share it with others. If you're sharing the knowledge, then you're doing what the Bible's asking you to do. The pursuit of knowledge is the pursuit of happiness. That's one of the things that I love most about the education career field, of which I've been proudly a part of for 33 years. Actually all my life, but I've stood at the podium for 33 years and worked the classrooms. So what are you doing with your knowledge? What are you doing to acquire more knowledge? Are you reading daily? Are you watching the news? Not fake news, but real news. Are you pursuing the words of the scriptures in the daily reading or lessons? Reclaiming knowledge. The only way we're going to reclaim it is if we change our mindset and our attitudes about it. It's interesting that I used the phrase mindset because in 2006, Carol Dweck wrote a wonderful book entitled Mindset. And it talks about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is one where you pretty much have given up and you're accepting life for what it is, for whatever it may be. The growth mindset is the one that's hungry and thirsty for knowledge and is constantly striving for a better life. What do I mean when I say a better life? Well, let's see. There's 3.9 million people living in the wonderful state of Oklahoma. Of those 3.9 million people, only 24.5% hold a college degree. Interesting, isn't it? The largest and most industrial county, Oklahoma County, has a 16.9% illiteracy rate. Not much thirst for knowledge, is it? It's kind of difficult to survive in life if we can't even get through the basic things of just reading and handling our bills and prescriptions and correspondence with family and friends. If you look at it from a governmental standpoint, there are 16,497 invested per inmate per year. Yet the same state only spends about $8,000 per student in K-12. So much for the education, the prison pipeline. It's pretty much laid out there. So what we have to do is fight. We have to take no for no answer. Don't take no for an answer, and fight for what we deserve, fight for what we want, fight for what we need. The struggle never ends. Malcolm X once said that education is the true passport to a prosperous future. Well, if that's truly so, then we need to change the education system and we need to get more kids in school. We need to get more kids graduated. We need to get more communities educated. There's another book that was published in 2004, John C. Maxwell. It's entitled Today Matters. And in that book, it's coinciding alongside with many scriptures, and it's got 12 basic principles that you apply to your life from day to day to help increase your knowledge, to help increase your health, to help increase your wealth and your overall well-being. I strongly recommend both of those books, John C. Maxwell's Today Matters or Carol Dweck's Mindset. You can pretty much find them on any venue that you would want to pursue for less than $5. They're quick reads, they're easy reads, and they help you to get your life in line. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, because because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will always reject thee." In Christianity, the word knowledge is a spiritual gift listed in 1 Corinthians 12:8. So if we look at it from a well-read standpoint, or we look at it from a scriptural standpoint, knowledge is one of those things that we cannot take for granted. We must reclaim it, we must hold to it, and we must live by it. Each and every day, you should learn something new and apply it to your life, and then share it with someone else. That's the whole purpose, and it's the whole point. I'd like to thank the ODI for inviting me out, for having me for this short soliloquy. My name is Dr. Fred Hammond, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
Hi, I'm Camille Landry. I live in Oklahoma City, and I'm here to talk about power, Black power to be specific. Now, Black power is a very elusive and very misunderstood concept. The first time a brother named Mukasa, or Willie Ricks, stood in front of a microphone and raised his defiant black fist to the sky and shouted, "Black power," America lost its mind. What does this mean? People said. They're talking about taking over. What is this about? Very much analogous to the situation that we have today when Black people stand in front of a microphone or in the streets of America and raise our fists and say, "Black Lives Matter." The two slogans are virtually synonymous. Let's talk about power a little bit. What does it mean to have Black power? Who has Black power? And will Black power do us any good? First of all, I'd like to suggest that Black people have always had power. The problem is the control of that power has not always been in the hands of Black people. Case in point, we had power when we were thrown into the belly of a ship and transported across the Atlantic Ocean in chains. How could that be power, you might ask? We were powerful in the sense that we had value, and the value of our Black bodies and their potential labor was sufficient to change the balance of world power. In fact, if you research the origins of most of America's and thus the world's largest financial corporations, the organizations, the institutions that really hold the wealth of this nation and globally, many of them have their basis, their origins in the transatlantic slave trade. J.P. Morgan Chase and many other Wall Street firms that control most of the power and money in this country had their start as insurance companies and shipping companies dealing with the transatlantic slave trade. With the movement of Black bodies from Africa to the Western Hemisphere, with the movement of the crops and the wealth that we created back into the newly industrial European and North American nations, and the transfer of money into the hands of people who still hold that money and wield that power. Black people had power then. We did not control our Black power. Black people had power when we tilled the fields and made cotton and rice and indigo and sugarcane and other commodities rise up out of the soil of America. Black people had power when we were the labor that staffed the factories and the homes and the fields of America and of the global South. Black people in Africa had power as the people who sat on top of the continent with the greatest natural resources that are absolutely essential for modern day commerce and industry. We've always had power. The problem is our power is like a battery in a package. We don't control it. We are unable to tap into it. And if it sits there unused, what happens to it? It diminishes. So I'm coming to you today to tell you that Black power is not a slogan. Black Lives Matter is not just a slogan. It is a pattern, a suggestion, a recipe, a set of instructions, if you will, for how we carry out the business of surviving and thriving in our current time and environment. You exercise your power where you are with the tools that you have. If you are a student, you exercise Black power by advocating for the rights of other students who look like you, other marginalized people. You exercise your power by demanding that the institutions of which you're a part are responsible to you and meet your needs. If you're a teacher, you exercise Black power by working to overturn the systemic racism that is a part of the educational establishment, and by making the power of that institution relevant to the lives of your Black students. If you're a healthcare worker, you exercise Black power by working to defeat racism in healthcare, by working to create equity, to end some of the terrible disadvantages and the effects of systemic racism that affect Black people in that realm. Wherever you are, you exercise the power you have. You don't let the battery sit on the shelf in a package because it'll eventually die down. Now, one of the things that Black power is not is adversarial to any other people of goodwill. I'm not even going to get into that to any great degree because it's an unnecessary conversation to have. People who return, when we say Black Lives Matter, when people say, yeah, but all lives matter, they're not really trying to put forth the notion that they themselves matter. They're just reminding you once again that you do not. And the same is true of Black power. So my message to you today is to first of all, recognize your power. You do that by recognizing that, in fact, what you do makes a difference, not only to yourself in your own life, but also to the community from which you sprang. You do it by banding together with other like-minded people, not only other people of African origin, but also other oppressed people and other people who are allies in our struggle for equality and for justice. You do it by always, continuously, unrelentingly holding responsible the people who do hold power in this nation and in this world, and refusing to lie down and be a passive recipient of oppression. It's a myth that we ever have been. It's a total myth that Black people submitted to slavery, to the slave trade, and to Jim Crow without fighting back. Talk to your grandmother. She'll tell you. We've always advocated for our own. It's time for us to do that again. It's time for us to seize our power, to implement our power, to throw our power around with purpose and with the energy that it takes, and to be unrelenting in the application of that power, so that when it gets down to whose life matters, it won't be necessary to say, oh, by the way, Black lives matter. That will be a given. As students in a university, you are, as young people, you are our hope, you are our future. You are the people who are responsible for picking up the mantle from old folks like me and carrying that flag forward to ensure that Black power that we've always had is appropriately applied, and that it results not in personal enrichment, not in personal aggrandizement. Nobody's looking for a prize or a flag, but in a better life for you, for those that come after you, for those around you. By the way, power is not something that exists in a vacuum. One battery doesn't do much, won't even power most flashlights. It's only when you get an array of them working in parallel, joined together with a joint purpose, that power even exists in any kind of working way. So the ball's in your court, folks. Black power is the thing that will enable us, is the concept that will enable us to start working against systemic racism. Now, a little bit on that. I'm pretty much disinterested in prejudice. I don't care what somebody thinks about me, whether or not they like me, whether or not they feel that I'm inferior, they're equal, or even they're superior. In the long run, that's irrelevant. Racism is a systemic issue and has to be addressed, attacked, and overturned systemically. So now that we have raised the issue in the media of America, in the face of America, it's time for us to start working towards systemic change, and that's your job. Again, in the institutions in which you live and work and the things in which you do, the onus is upon you to exercise your power, to join with others so that the power is mighty. And so that's my 2 cents worth. Happy Black History Month, and power to the people.
I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is all right with me. 'Cause you make me feel so brand new. And I want to spend my life with you. Let me say sing, baby, since we've been together, ooh, loving you forever.
Hey everybody, welcome UCOers, man. Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to share a couple of insights and things that I've been thinking about. First of all, I just want to thank you for allowing me to come speak to you guys today. My name is Norman Markland, and I'm a UCO alumni. I'm also a therapist, and I run the transitional living program, as well as self-proclaimed community activist, organizer. I'm a little old now, so, but I just want to, just come chop it up with you guys and talk about some things. I know you are embarking on a new Black History Month, so I want to take this time to understand the historical components, and let us talk about and identify some spaces we've been in. We all know that 2020 was the year for the ages. And if you're like me, you spend a lot of time on social media looking at the daily pandemic numbers. You also seen a lot of the police brutalities and the killings that you see across year to year, body to body. And you know the names, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And while the unrest has garnered America's attention, it's important to understand the power and the space that we are currently living in. And if you look at history, although we made a lot of progress, we continue to see history repeat itself. So with this year's theme of reclamation, knowledge, and power in space, it is imperative that we take a critical analysis of where we have been to get an understanding of where we are and where we're going. Me personally, I love history. For me, it always illuminates how we can connect to each other, right? If we go back through history, we'll see moments in time where our community has need of the importance of the cohesive spaces that would allow us to not only build communities, businesses, and take care of our families. So when I think of reclamation, I always think, and I go back to the period of Reconstruction. And the actual term Reconstruction is the significant with something that is being rebuilt or reorganized, right? So we always hear about history and all the historic moments and even slavery, but I like to focus on things right after slavery. There are so many historic Black moments, many communities that honestly I had no clue about, like growing up. In fact, that I was kind of I kind of was frustrated that I actually didn't learn about this stuff growing up. But now that I'm an adult and I've increased my self-awareness, I've taken advantage of the opportunity to really learn about my past because it's told me so much about who I am as a person. There are so many historically Black moments, right? So many spaces that Black have propelled and excelled and built exceptional organizations that identify the way we can identify ourselves in our community. Towns like Wilmington, North Carolina. See, after the Civil War, you've seen a lot of Black progress throughout the country, and particularly Black towns, right? So Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898 was the tremendous amount of Black prosperity. You see, not only were there Black doctors and Black elected officials, but there was pioneers such as Alexander Manly, right? So if you look back through history, you see at that time that Black were starting to get into politics. We started to develop our own schools, historically Black institutions. And why was that significant? It was significant because we developed our identity and we started to prosper, right? So if you look at Wilmington, North Carolina, one of many Black communities that were prosperous, you will also see the resistance that you can see from the historic times of white supremacists and also ideologies and values that were propagated on the community to prevent us from prospering. So in 1898, you see the rise of white supremacy. You see the rise of dog whistle and ideologies and fearmonger tactics that we continue to see today. And why is that important? It's important because these are political and economic strategies that are put in place to prevent you from prospering and coming together as a community. We also see the destruction of different towns and the castration of different communities, but we also see individuals such as Alexander Manly who knew the importance of creating spaces that were cohesive and could idolize and spread our voice. So he created the Daily Record, which was a newspaper that would attack negative stereotypes of Black and African-American people. He knew there was a power in a voice, and he knew that if we were to create spaces that would allow us to identify ourselves and create a voice for ourselves, that we can maximize our potential. So he started to come out with different newspaper writings that would talk about Black identity, Black prosperity, Black economics. And of course, there was a lot of resistance to that. There was a lot of people that didn't understand that Black people had the intellect and the intelligence to really identify and come together and market themselves. This year, of course, we all know is 100 years of Tulsa Race Massacre. 100 years, y'all, 100 years. It isn't that long ago that our ancestors and the individuals right up north of us were experiencing desolate and massacre within their community. And for me, that troubles me because I didn't learn about Tulsa Massacre growing up. I actually had Oklahoma history in 10th grade. I didn't know nothing about it. But once I started researching my history, once I started researching my ideology and my community, I learned of individuals like O.W. Gurley, who was one of the founders of Tulsa. In 1906, O.W. Gurley had a vision. He had a vision to create a space to create Black businesses as well as Black community. So growing up in Arkansas, he's seen the foresight if we could create our own spaces for prosperity, for economics, to create and take care of our Black families. So he went out to Tulsa and bought 40 acres of land. So he made sure that that land was sold specifically to African Americans. He knew the value in creating a space for African American people, right? The investment, of course, we all know North Tulsa would grow into the Black epicenter, Black Wall Street that we know today. But unfortunately, we know that it was burned down, looted, rioted, and stolen, right? So as we mark this year, 2021, and we reflect on Tulsa, we reflect on Wilmington, we reflect on all the other Black progressions and progress that we made throughout the years. Let us not forget where we are and where we came from, and let us not forget the importance of utilizing our power and the voice from individuals like you, so we can make sure we reclaim our space and our power in today's society. As I reflect on my 2020, I think as the world has turned virtual, man, we've seen things like the versus battle. We see things go from being online, in person, to being virtual, to being in class, to being out of class, to being living every day in uncertainty. But one of the things that 2020 had taught me is basically the idea of sitting back, sitting down. And some of the fun stuff, I actually got to see one of my favorite boxers, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight, right? And I hope you guys got a chance to look at that, because that was like one of the highlights of my 2020. But before that fight, we seen Nate Robinson fight Jake Paul, the Problem, right? And so just a little bit about what I got from that fight, even though Nate Robinson got beat up, he got pretty much put down, put to sleep. I realized the story that Nate went through, right? Like why he wanted to fight this fight. Like he wanted to prove that as an athlete, he can transition into the boxing ring. And even though he lost, he trained 6 days a week, morning and night. He even got some support from Floyd Mayweather, right? So even you can see it throughout the fight, man, he was going in, right? He really didn't understand what he was doing. So round after round, Nate on the sidelines, you can see him like breathing really hard, right? So you can see the anguish on his face at the entering the round two. 150 into the round, Nate took a jab and caught a right and bam, and hit the floor. So while we all laughed, we even heard Snoop in the background saying, Lord have mercy, this is not for him, right? So we laughed and we joked and we clowned, but we all have been knocked down, right? Maybe not physically, but from a community perspective, we all have been knocked down, killed, ancestors have been killed, shot, and looted, right? So, but what I witnessed and what I understand is from not only from Nate's perspective, what his response, and from a community perspective is the ability to be resilient and persevere through those challenging times. So even though Nate has fallen down in front of millions of viewers, he's able to get up and understand the importance of being resilient and perseverance, right? So that's applicable and correlates to our community. We've been knocked down a tremendous amount of times. We get knocked down every single year. We get shot at, we get killed, we get disproportionately incarcerated, right? Our health statistics. But from what I know from my ancestors and what I know from the people that came before me is the ability to be resilient, the ability to persevere, right? The ability to continue to fight for Black progress and Black freedom. And that brings me to my life. Like as I look back on my life and what I've been through in my journey of consciousness, and I'm a journey of self-awareness. I remember being a freshman, being in school just like you guys, coming from Lawton, Oklahoma. See, back then, we didn't have parents that took us up to college, right? We were kind of on our own. So I remember driving up in the Dodge Shadow with shiny hubcaps, right? And so I remember going through the UC and signing up for every loan possible. Being a first generation student, I was just so lost in the sauce. So I remember being in class and looking around to my left and looking around to my right and being one of 2 Black individuals in the class. And I didn't know at the time that I was creating this conundrum, I was creating this schema that I really didn't belong, right? And after my first semester, I was on the brink of dropping out, but it wasn't for me establishing a community that I was able to understand the importance of Black cohesiveness, right? The space that we're in, the importance of understanding how people that we surround ourselves with. So after my first year, I started getting involved with things like TRIO organizations, Diversity Encounter, We used to hang out in Little Africa back when UC used to have like one strip of table. We used to all kick it. We used to all be on the 4th floor of the UC talking about our grades, talking about community, talking about the resources that are available. Little did I know, I was really creating a team of a community of people that would keep me accountable. So I knew when I got outside of my classroom that I was able to have a community to identify with, a community to prosper, the community that make me identify myself, set goals, and then graduate. Those skills that I learned at that table and that community at UCO, I take that on with me today. And I learned the value of a space to create. Anywhere you go, the importance of creating a space and community for other people around you, right? So while we're in the deadliest pandemic since the Spanish flu, our country is more divided than ever. Your voice and your power matters. I and we need you. We are the time that's important to be conducive for our modern day reclamation, our modern day civil rights movement. So as we move forward, I want to leave you with some points that I feel that consider as you move forward. One of the first things I want you to understand is the importance of knowing thyself, right? It sounds so cliche, but the most important thing you can do is understand yourself and your abilities. And at your age, you may not know what you want to be, what you're doing, but you just know you're going through the motions, right? You just know you're on a path to success and greatness. So take this time to understand your God-given talents. Embrace your struggle. Like one of my favorite rappers say, J. Cole said, there's beauty in the struggle. Understand that the struggle that you are going through and have been through and will go through is all purposeful. Sometimes I think we can get caught up in the accolades and the achievements and understanding the things around the likes and the social media that we forget that we are humans and we all are supposed to go through life struggles on its own. I know when I was in college, I was so caught up in being in this organization, and I didn't understand the power of moment, the power of being in the reflective space where I could understand who I am and what I was doing and how impactful it can be. Next thing is the understanding of being collective. Like one of the great Michael Eric Dyson philosophers said, there are several paths to liberation. What that pretty much means is we all have an equally just and ability to really maximize the movement, right? But that doesn't mean we all have to be in sync. It doesn't mean we all have to be doing the same thing at the same time. Some people can be in a courtroom, some people be in politics, some people can be community organizers. We're all on the path to Black liberation and Black freedom. So let's honor each other. Let's understand the importance of not only being divided, not only being in separate lanes, but understanding we all can support each other in our different trajectories and our different lanes and the different things we do in the community. You don't have to be well-known or famous or do anything in the community to really be like, whatever you feel like is important to you, do your part and understand the growing and ability to be reclaim not only your space, but reclaim a space in the community as well. Lastly, in the fight for equality and freedom, I want you to know, again, your contributions matter to the world. It's so important for you to understand these spaces in the current climate we're in. We are living in modern history. If you turn on the news, you can see all the things that are going on. You can see the rise of the Black revolutionists. You can see the rise of Black consciousness. You can see the rise of financial literacy and entrepreneurship within the Black community. You are the change agent. Your change comes now. We need you in this world. And everything from Tulsa to Wilmington to civil rights movement, from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X to the current day struggle, you matter and our community needs you. So in closing, man, I want to say our spaces that you create for yourself and believe that you are great. We are, and you are, an exceptional group of people. There's nobody that has endured the pain and the sufferings and the castration that you have stood over the years. You are a resilient group of people. Matter of fact, when they see you, you have to stand up clapping. Like, you are marvelous. You come from pioneers and kings and queens that have put forth the community and that we currently occupy. So I want you to understand the importance and value of understanding your history, knowing where you're at, and knowing where you're going. Finding your truth, living in your truth, and making sure you bring some people along with you, man. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come speak to you guys. I have an awesome Black History Month. I'm with you, we are with you, and together we are one. And thank you guys again for letting me come speak. One.
Thank you, Camille Landry, for those inspirational words of wisdom and guidance. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. On behalf of the African American Faculty Staff Association, we would like to commemorate this moment with this plaque, honoring you for those words of wisdom, and thank you for spending your day with us.
And on behalf of UCO's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, we would like to present these plaques to Norman Markland and Dr. Fred Hammond for their inspiring words that were given today.
Knowledge and consciousness are equal. The perception of Black people was deceitful. It's hard when skin color determines our fate. False education and lack of representation led to unawareness of self and our abilities for generations. Established by Richard Humphreys, was the first HBCU, to 3 Black children having the highest IQs, Candace Owens and Shelby Steele, political puns battling in a dangerous field, downplaying and degrading our Blackness to keep the shoppers playing, like white folks hiding behind a mask similar to the Klan. But education is elevation and knowledge is power. We scream Black Lives Matter, that's the power of the people. Taking a stand in hopes of being treated as equal, the ability to shift the world with the powerful movement, led by Black women to protect our Black men. Black women are warriors, natural-born leaders, fighting in a world where they created systems to defeat us. From slave ships to mass incarcerations, to CEOs of large corporations, to seats in Congress and the Senate, to Kamala Harris being the first Black woman vice president, taking up spaces in those places they said we couldn't. We writing history and making change, giving hope to the next generations to come, showing them the way and providing the path, stepping forward within ourselves while still acknowledging our past.
Each year during the Black History Month, the African American Faculty Staff Association recognizes an individual who has made outstanding contributions in service to the University of Central Oklahoma and its African American faculty, staff, students, and faculty. On behalf of ASFA, it gives me great pleasure to present the Judith Wakefield You Made a Difference Award to Stephanie Driver. Her contributions and dedication to UCO is second to none. Stephanie has demonstrated a genuine cooperation and extraordinary willingness to help others. Her positive attitude and upbeat demeanor certainly make it comfortable for students, faculty, and staff to approach her regardless of their circumstances. Stephanie's inclination to go beyond the call of duty to assist students is unmatched. On behalf of ASFA, I'd like to present this to Stephanie Driver. Thank you, Ms. Driver.
I'm Stephanie Driver, and I just want to thank the African American Faculty Staff Association for this wonderful honor. I don't even have the words to say thank you, but I just thank you, and I thank my Heavenly Father for blessing me with the job of working at the University of Central Oklahoma so I could be his vessel. So just again, thank you so much for this. This is an honor for me. I will cherish it forever. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much for joining us for our 16th annual Black History Month kickoff, the first time that it has ever been a virtual experience. A huge thank you to our incredible keynote speakers, Ms. Camille Landry, Mr. Norman Markland, Dr. Fred Hammond. Thank you all for your words of wisdom. To the African American Faculty and Staff Association, thank you for your unwavering support. To the Black Student Association, thank you for all of the hard work that you do. And I would be completely remiss if I didn't take this time to extend my sincerest gratitude to Ms. Gigi Jones, whose leadership has been invaluable throughout this entire process, and the Mickey Lovelace, whose talent makes us look good every day. We could not do this without you. Lastly, to all who have taken the time to connect with us, I extend to you this call to action. Commit to engaging in at least 2 other events during this month of celebration. Intentionally set aside time to examine how this year's Black History Month theme, the Reclamation, Knowledge, Power, Space, resonates with you personally and how you can contribute to bring awareness to and celebrate the powerful legacy of Black people in America.